Good afternoon. Welcome to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate. Of course, we all know that this is a show that is geared towards all things real estate in the Turks and Caicos Islands. It's always a privilege to be able to sit with you in your homes via social media on Thursdays to discuss anything that is pertaining to real estate in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Please like and share the page, and definitely let someone else know that Let's Talk TCI Real Estate is live. On the last edition of Let's Talk TCI Real Estate, just to go back a little, I had as a special guest Rosela Forbes, someone from Keller Williams Turks and Caicos, and both basically we had discussed land transactions in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Right? We spoke about where land, how land has evolved over the year. We spoke about land, how it is now, and we also talked about the future for land in terms of real estate in the Turks and Caicos Islands. If you did not have an opportunity to view that segment, of course, you can always go back and view it on my Facebook page and also on my YouTube channel, which is Vernica Delancey. So fast forward to today, I am always excited to have a guest with me in studio. And today in studio, I do have someone from the planning department, as we will be talking about the National Physical Development Plan and some amendments that are being proposed in this regard. So if you have not heard about it, again, like I said, this is a very important topic, especially for those landowners who are out there existing and also persons who intend to purchase in the near future. You want to be able to understand what is happening at this present time. Like I said, I have with me in studio a special guest in the person of Mr. Leonardo Glasgow. He's been on Let's Talk TCI Real Estate before in a different capacity and in about a different conversation, but I'm elated to have him with me here today. So for the listening public, Mr. Leonardo, I'm asking you to please reintroduce yourself to the listening audience. Let us know a little bit about also your role in the Department of Planning.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Like Mr. Lancy said, my name is Leonardo Glasgow. I'm the Assistant Director for Planning with a special emphasis on enforcement. I am a planner by trade and profession. I've been with the planning department now for about 7 years, and the day-to-day works in my new role, as it states, includes enforcement activities and as such.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today again. And I am actually looking forward to this conversation. And I'm sure you know when I say that, I'm not just saying that because, of course, real estate is my field. But anytime I start thinking about real estate, I just get so excited, especially when we can learn more about what's going on. Sometimes we wait until consultation process has ended, and then we feel as if we did not have an opportunity to express ourselves or to really understand what was going on. So an opportunity like this, I'm glad that you have agreed to be a part of this show to help us to understand further what it is that is being proposed at this time in regards to the amendment of the National Physical Development Plan. Once again, to listening audience, if you have a question or comment, your questions and comments your questions and comments, we are open to receiving them, and I will just be nudging from looking down at my phone from time to time just in case I see any of those questions or comments come through. So just to kick it off, just to give it a little bit of start, even though we are talking about amendments, we need to understand even before the amendments what exactly the National Physical Plan for 2020 it's all about. If you can give us a brief history of that, we will appreciate it so we can get the full idea of what we are talking about today.
Okay, so in any country to be successful and chart a way forward, there must always be strategic planning. That is essentially the ethos of the National Physical Development Plan. The Turks and Caicos Islands had the privilege of having one prior to 2020. However, it was last done in 1987. So some 33 years we went without a National Physical Development Plan. So we were most excited to get that underway so we can use the plan as a tool to shape, to guide the way that the country moves forward, not only just in terms of thinking raw development of building, but also economic prosperity, preserving the environment, inclusion, equity. Everything is encompassed within the National Physical Development Plan. So we had the undertaking of having this done in 2020, which was finally finalized and became law. And now we're back at the table again, because I must say that the plan, while it is a 10-year plan and it's supposed to last for that span of time before a brand new one is done, it's also very fluid. Whereas the plan can be updated, there can be amendments granted to the plan, so it's not set in stone. Actually, at the 5-year mark, which will be next year, we will do a comprehensive review of the plan just to see if there's other things, other aspects that needs to be updated, that needs to be changed, depending on how the country itself is moving in terms of new laws, new regulations that may affect everything that we do.
Okay. I'm just talking about a 5-year mark. Were you anticipating making any amendments before that?
We were very open to the likelihood that this may have occurred. So yes, we were anticipating that this may have occurred. This is actually the second amendment that was done. One was done already previously, so there was an update done in 2021, but that was specifically to a case in just one page of the National Physical Development Plan in terms of dealing with Little Water Key.
Okay. Just talking about that one case, I've seen or I've read where you said that there are currently like 200 expressions of interest that were tabled. What would you say, what were these modifications in regards to?
Okay, in this specific case, this amendment is looking at the land use designations. Since the establishment of the plan in 2020, we've had a number of persons that have come forward and realized that the zoning, as we call it, the land use designation for their specific parcel would have changed from what it was prior. So there was always a zoning plan, specifically more so for Provo than the other islands, but land use designation would have changed in the 2020 plan, and a lot of landowners were coming forward and said that they realized that some change had occurred, sales may have occurred, ownership may have changed hands, and that change in designation may not have been communicated at that time. So we had a number of people interested. So then we decided as a department and along with the ministry that it would be good to do an amendment. So last year, August, we opened up an open consultation, an open invitation to everyone across the Turks and Caicos Islands to write in any land use designation change which you feel may be warranted, whether you own the property or not. So that ran for 8 weeks, which is standard in accordance with the physical planning ordinance, and that ran from August up until October. Once that time period had expired, we then collated the information, we presented it to the minister, and then the minister took it to cabinet, and then it was agreed at cabinet that yes, we can move forward with the change or the amendment to the ordinance in accordance with the physical planning ordinance. A change to the plan in accordance with the physical planning ordinance, because the law allows us to change the plan, but it must be done at a level of the governor and cabinet. So having granted that approval, we've now launched into this 8-week again process where we are inviting people to view the list of all the people who came forward last year and give any comments, any recommendations, any thoughts to that list. And then a final draft will be done. It will be presented to the Physical Planning Board. The board will make their recommendations. They will present it again to the minister. his recommendations will be added and then finally presented back before cabinet. It's a lot.
So you said a lot.
It's a lot. It is a lot.
Yes. So you've said a lot, and I want to ask two questions based on that. You continue to refer to the lists that have went through this process. Our first question is, since this list was submitted, have you had any additional submissions, and are additional submissions allowed, or just recommendations or comments in regards to it?
So yes, up to today, we've had submissions where people are still emailing and letting us know that they would like a parcel change and designation from what it previously was to something always higher in density. What I can say at this point is they will not form part of the list that was done in 2023. Okay. However, we will collate all that information and that'll form a part of our report. And then that report will be presented up the chain, as I just stated, and a decision will be made up the chain whether the new interests will form a part of that old list, and we do a comprehensive review of all of them at that point, or a change in the law itself, which will allow for us not to have to go through maybe that lengthy process. Okay. Because what people would come into us now and they would state, I want to do an application for rezoning, but technically there is no application for rezoning. Any change of land designation is a change in the law, and that can only be done by the governor and cabinet. So rather than doing it on a case-by-case basis, if the law is amended to allow for anything else to happen differently, then we will get that decision when we reach that end point.
Okay. So of course you've said a lot more yet again, and I've gotten questions over there yet again.
It is a lot.
But before I even tap into some of the last things you said, I wanted to make sure, because you were talking about 8 weeks once again, where this list is, you're doing the consultation. Where are we in this 8-week process at this particular time? And when is the deadline for this?
Okay, we are now coming up to the end of week 6, which will be tomorrow. The list was gazetted on the 12th of July. And so that means the deadline will be the 6th of September.
So the 6th of September. Okay. So one of the things you continue to talk about is, of course, it's all about the zonings. So I would like for you, if you can give some clarification on some of the zonings that I've been seeing throughout the list, because I also feel like the general public may not quite understand what all the meaning of the zonings may be. For example, there are certain things that says tourism related or medium density. You have a lot more properties in the medium density zone, or mixed use is something new that you have brought up with the National Development Plan in 2022. If you can give some sort of clarification on that, and of course uninhabited, I've seen that throughout the lists as well.
Okay, please allow me to pull up some legal use so I don't misspeak. Okay. In terms of commercial tourism related, it refers to large scale commercial uses of areas primarily to accommodate activities related to tourism. These developments are important to the Turks and Caicos as tourism is currently our main industry. The permitted uses within commercial tourism related, this is all in the National Physical Development Plan, is hotels, marinas, resorts, offices. Now, when I say hotels, that means that's not including the tourism related designation of 50 bedrooms per acre.
Okay.
Tourism, commercial related, is only 25 bedrooms. So it doesn't carry the same weight and the same density as the sole tourism related area.
Okay.
Medium density residential, which is detached, what we call detached, which would be a single separate home, or semi-detached, for example, a duplex, a unit beside a unit that's adjoined with a common wall. You can do up to 8 units or 16 bedrooms on medium density. So we have low, medium, high density designations throughout the Turks and Caicos.
Sorry, but just an injection here. You refer to bedrooms. So you, I know one time they refer to as kitchens. So which one, just to be clear, just for me and clarification and explaining to people. So now we're more
units,
back to
8 units, meaning 8. That doesn't mean 8 bedrooms.
right.
8 units can be, as it states in the law, 8 units can be 16 bedrooms. So that's 2 bedrooms per unit. So it's all very techy and it's but it's broken down. So one of the things, if I may inject, is we always advise to come and see us.
Okay.
Come and see us. We're open. Our doors are open. There's no fee for consultation at the moment, but there should be. But but yes, we're always open to sit down with anyone. If you have any questions, your land use designation, what is the maximum or the minimum that may be allowed on your parcel, we're open to explaining that to you and having a sit down with you.
Okay.
Mixed use, like you said, that is a new designation that was just introduced in the 2020 version of the National Physical Development Plan. Mixed use designation allows for both commercial and residential uses to be carried out on the same parcel. That can be in the same building or it can be separate buildings on the same parcel. Now, although the National Physical Development Plan doesn't specify what the maximum density is, in the previous and still existing TCI development manual, there's a mention of 25 units. Okay. So we're working with the 25 units for mixed use development. So like you would see probably most likely along the Millennium Highway corridor, where you have commercial entities at the bottom floor, and on the first and second floor probably you would see residential units. Uninhabited was a specific case for a water key, whereas certain parcels of land were designated to be uninhabited for the use of preserving nature.
Okay.
And like the case that happened where some of those parcels were privately owned and they may not have been contacted or they may not have known about the National Physical Development Plan when it happened in 2020. So that's why you'll see a list of those uninhabited parcels now being referred back to low density residential because they're all in private ownership. The ones that do belong to the Crown may stay as uninhabited just so we can preserve some of our natural beauty and the species, natural flora and fauna that are on those areas.
Right. Okay, so just want to pause for a minute just to remind everyone that, of course, we have with us today Mr. Leonardo Glasgow of the Planning Department, and he is here talking about the amendments to the National Physical Development Plan. So definitely, if you have a question or comment, please use this opportunity to put it in the comment section of the feed, and so that we can get those questions answered on your behalf. Okay, so while you were speaking earlier, one of the things you mentioned, I know you were talking about any new submissions that may have been put forward at the time. You would also put it forward when you give your recommendations, and then at the time, Cabinet and Governor will be able to decide how you're going to handle those submissions. But this question out of that, when the deadline have expired, now there may be additional new submissions that have not been submitted along with the existing ones. How do you feel like you're going to handle these, seeing that they would not have reached the governor or the cabinet at this stage? Because you know that's going to happen when this deadline expires. So how is this going to be handled?
Unfortunately, that will have to be handled in the way that they did not meet the time. And while a lot of people are coming forward now with interest to have their parcel designations changed, we would probably encourage those at those point. If it is you have a specific development that is ready to go, we would probably encourage you to submit an application for outline development permission, which would detail everything that you would be seeking to undertake in your new development, and then at which point your application can be dealt with on a single case basis. But simply writing after the deadline wouldn't qualify you for a consideration. We'll then only be able to consider anyone based on the submission of an application.
Okay. So let me ask you, based on these new modifications that have put forward, would you say that they are in line with the original goal of the National Physical Development Plan? And do you think that based on this, another consultation will be needed in the future?
Yes, I believe they are in the goal. With the trajectory of the Turks and Caicos at the moment, we are increasing in our population size, which is why you will see most submissions on our list are for requests for an increase in density. We all know that we're going through a housing shortage, a housing crisis at the moment. So all these things will be in aid of that. And like I said previously, the plan is a tool. So with any tool, it requires sharpening after it's been in use for a while. So I do anticipate we may be right back here again doing another consultation. And I would like to include that the land use designation changes that we're currently considering is only one facet of the entire plan. Maybe after new laws, for example, the renewable energy bill, maybe after new laws that come into place that'll affect how we develop in the future, we may have to go back to the plan and say, okay, we need to pull this section out. We will need to do an amendment to this because it is law as it is now. And if laws that are ancillary to the plan are created and developed and put into place, we will have to go back and amend the whole plan or that section of the plan to suit.
Right. With that said, have you ever had any other person who have written in about other parts of the plan? I know we're talking about the zoning at this particular time, but since the plan was launched, have you had any other recommendations or suggestions that have come forward after the fact?
Yes, we've had a number of recommendations that have come forward. Some people have read the entire plan and submitted a very large documents to us with very key instruments or key highlights or some historical facts that we may have overlooked or did not include that they felt pertinent to be included. So we have had other aspects of the plan written into us and changes made because the draft plan was also out for a very long time. It went through a number of public consultations and being released into the public. It was deposited at all areas across the Turks and Caicos that we could find, the DC offices on every island throughout the Turks and Caicos. So the plan has been out there for people to actually see, view, and give feedback to us, which we encourage up to this day.
Yeah. Well, you know, since the plan has been launched, of course, I've read not all of it, but I have read a substantial amount of it because I'm always referring back to it, especially in this real estate field, as persons are asking about what's going on in this various islands, as well as what's going on in their surrounding areas of where their parcels are located. So it is, like you said, a very comprehensive plan. So for those who haven't read it, I mean, it's a very good document to read because it really gives you an idea of what is planned for the islands in the Turks and Caicos. So I do have a question here. I have two questions, if you may, and then I'll continue with the questions that I have. What is the best email to send general feedback to?
Okay, yes, thank you for that question. The best email that will go to all members of staff within the planning department is planningconsultation@gov.tc. That's planning consultation, one word, at gov.tc.
Okay, great. All right. Another question. Apart from this current consultation, what is the normal process of rezoning a parcel of land and how long does this process take?
Yeah, I'll start from the back of the question.
Great.
It's a long process. It's a lengthy process, but the normal process, like I said, it's not simply a rezoning of your specific portion of land. If you're thinking about it as the whole plan being a complete document, you're wanting to change an aspect of the plan. So the the physical planning ordinance allows for modifications to the plan. So that's why I said after the deadline, if someone wants to have their parcel designation changed for whatever valid reason, they would have to submit a planning application, an outline development permission planning application. That application will have to be advertised in accordance with Regulation 8 of the ordinance, and it'll basically state that the proposed development is inconsistent with the National Physical Development Plan. However, they're proposing to do XYZ. After the advertisement process, we'll do an internal review of the comprehensive plan and everything that was submitted. Our recommendation will be made to the Physical Planning Board, but our recommendation will always be to forward to the governor and cabinet, because the planning department can't make that decision. And however, the Physical Planning Board can't make that decision. So while the application will be tabled at the Physical Planning Board, the Physical Planning Board will then make their recommendation that the application be forwarded to governor and cabinet. Following that process, the planning department will prepare a cabinet paper. That cabinet paper will be forwarded to the minister. The minister will then take it to the cabinet for reading, and the decision will be made. It's long.
It is a long process, but I'm glad the question was asked, because this is a question we've been asked so many times in the real estate industry, and they feel like, okay, they can just go to planning and say, hey, I want the powers to be in planning to rezone, like we call it, change the zoning of the parcel. But I like how you explain it, but there's no such thing as a rezoning. No. And I like that you explain that it's not just the planning department, but it's only the board. It's a recommendation, and it goes up the chain of command until it gets to cabinet and the governor. And this is all of these stakeholders are involved in this entire process. Yes. So it's not just a simple application and that's it. Why haven't Mr. Glasgow approved my rezoning of a parcel?
Correct.
One of the things I want to say, sometimes I think when we are asking, again, I'm just using the word rezoning because this is what we continue to use, and this is layman's term that we understand. But we continue to ask about property zoning changing, and sometimes we don't realize the zoning that we have. We do have the ability to do the development that we are looking on sometimes, and that's why one of the questions I did ask was about explaining the differences in some of these zoning, because they feel like I need a commercial property to do all of these things that I need to do, whereas you may not need a commercial property for the development that is proposed. Like you say, even we're talking about the mixed use, it gives you an opportunity to do something of a commercial nature as well as a residential nature. So I think it's back to understanding what it means, but also having a sit down with the planning department, and probably someone can explain to them, this is my specific parcel that I'm looking at, and these are the possible things that I'm able to do on it before we go out there submitting applications, and we don't need anything to be rezoned.
Yeah.
Great.
Correct.
Okay. I do have one or two other questions. Does a single parcel designated as mixed use need to include both residential and commercial? Does a single parcel designated as mixed use need to include both residential and commercial?
No, so you can do fully commercial if you wish, or you can do fully residential as you wish. The allowance is just there for you to do both. Right. Rather than on a residential parcel that is designated as residential, you would not be able to include the commercial element. Aspects. But even on just commercial property, you can always add residential, because if you look at it as a step ladder, where residential is probably at the lowest tier, And as you step up, you'll get to commercial. So if you wish to include some of the lower tier designation in your higher designation class, that would not be a problem.
Yes, that's cool. Yeah, something we've always tell people. If you have a commercial lot, you want to throw a residential house, that's your choice.
That's your choice.
Your
exactly.
choice if you want to be in that area with other commercial business. But as you just can't do the reverse.
Yeah, you can't do the reverse.
Great. I have two more questions, and then we're getting there. So what with the changes in the zoning, were there any consideration made to height restrictions, as some of the amendments appears to be favorable for larger developments?
Yes, so that's a whole separate tier of the National Physical Development Plan. There is a height designation associated with all land designations as they exist. I don't foresee there being a challenge because if you were going from the lowest to the, let's say, low density residential, and you were going up to medium density residential, you would probably still only maximum be able to achieve 3 stories. So I don't foresee them being a huge restriction. Based on the different areas of Provo and all of the Turks and Caicos Islands, height designations have been assigned along with land use designations. So they kind of go hand in hand. However, we're not looking at height changes at this moment. So that is a very good question and point to raise. So where I may be able to raise the density of my parcel from lower to medium, if I don't have the property size to still accommodate setbacks, parking, wastewater treatment, plant allocation, recreation, if I'm not able to still facilitate that on the size of my low density residential parcel, it's almost futile for me to ask for medium because my height restriction will still be capped at whatever it is for that area.
Okay, that was a really good question that was asked. Yeah. So basically just moving back, I don't see any additional questions. If you do have one, please put it in the comment section because we are moving close to wrapping up time. So if you have anything, this is your opportunity to add those last questions at this time. So in the weekly news, there was an article, of course, and you echoed that the sentiments that you are urging residents to get involved regardless of land ownership. Whether you have ownership of land or not, you may be affected by a change in zoning to an area you live in or live directly next to. Can you elaborate a little bit about this? Because as I was reading this, I had a few thoughts in my mind, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to ask him this question because I want to understand exactly where he's coming from, especially for those who may not have land, but to say how they are going to be affected by this change.
Yeah, so there's a really old American song that states, I won't sing it.
Don't do it.
for the safety of all our ears, but the song says that this is your land, this is my land, from California to the New York Island. That means the length and breadth of the USA. So while I may live on Providenciales, that doesn't mean that I'm not very interested on what is happening on Grand Turk. So having an interest not just in my 4 corners of where I reside, but having a holistic approach, which is what the plan is hoping to achieve, is that you can have feedback on all areas of land. So if you were to live in Provo, for example, but yet you have relatives or you have friends that live on North Caicos and you see something happening, you could alert them and say, okay, well, how do you feel about this parcel of land being changed from this to this? The change to this other designation may mean that this sort of development will be built next to where you currently live. And that's going to affect you as a property owner in North Caicos,
Right.
Your property values, your peace, your safety, the character of the area may change. So that's why we say, rather whether or not you own land, it's good to look at the list, see what's happening, make yourself aware and informed of what's happening in the country that you live in, especially if you call this home. I please encourage you to have a look at the list, come in, ask questions. What is this? What is that? What will possibly be here? I may not own, but I live in this area. What do you guys foresee this area changing to?
Right.
Maybe I want to move out of that area. So all those different things, that's what the plan is hoping to achieve, to get everyone included.
Right. Including everyone is always a good thing. But there's always doubts where people feel like even if I make a submissions that everything is already set in stone and then their opinion doesn't matter. What would you say to someone who's thinking along that line?
I would say to that person, if you're quiet and say nothing, then you can't then on the back end of it want to have an opinion when something changes. Similar to voting, if we look at it, I always say, if you choose not to vote, then you should choose not to complain. But the similar to that is that you should always take an interest in saying something, and not saying anything won't help the case in any matter. It won't hurt to ask a few questions. Even if you may think that they're silly questions, it may raise a very good point that we have not yet considered and something that could be penciled in, and you could be part of a monumental change to the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Okay. So I have about 3 more questions. I see there's another question here says, what are the provisions made for landowners that are not present in the Turks and Caicos Islands and who are not aware of these pending changes? What provisions are being made?
Well, the public consultation is gazetted, which is not something that is just available to everyone here in the Turks and Caicos. It's a national document. By law, any attempt at contacting someone should be done so, and the Gazette is also always one of those official documents that stated that once it's posted in there, there's no excuse to not say that you've been informed. We're trying our best. As we were talking off camera, it would be virtually impossible for us to contact every single landowner throughout the Turks and Caicos Islands and notify them of what is going on. Those resources would exhaust the 8 weeks just trying to contact people. So we did it legally by posting it in the Gazette.
Okay. Again, just thinking about international persons who have ownership in the Turks and Caicos, where could they find a copy of the zoning maps to be able to know what their parcels are designated? Online versions of it other than the Gazette.
The zoning maps, they're not available online at the moment, but if you do contact the planning department, we're more than willing to send it to you and you can have your own personal copy of that zoning for that island.
Okay, so contacting the
planning
department. Yeah. Okay, great. So I would like to say in closing, are there any additional important points that you feel that you would like to share with those who are listening that we may not have touched, that you feel is pertinent to them understanding this amendment that is happening and the process moving forward?
In case it's not been said or it's not been heard, please view the list of changes to the proposed amendment to the National Physical Development Plan. Follow us on Facebook at Turks and Caicos Islands Government Planning Department for more updates. Follow us on Instagram at Planning Department TCI. The email address again is planningconsultation@gov.tc. The numbers for the Provo office is +1 649 338 4335. In Grand Turk, it's 338-2209. Reach out to us. Our offices are always open. come and have a conversation with us, sit down with us on anything, not even just specifically related to these proposed amendments, but anything you foresee as a challenge, a proposal, an idea, a comment, a congratulations, anything. We're welcome to the public because the plan is for the people. It's not the planning department's plan. It's not the Ministry of Infrastructure and Physical Planning's plan. It's the people's plan.
Well, thank you so much. Of course, this show is only for 45 minutes. And we have actually reached our 45 minutes limit. But I think that you have shared sufficient information, like you said, for persons who understand what is going on now. And for people, even if they didn't fully get it, to now be aware of, hey, this is your opportunity to be able to make your submissions if you, in relations to what is happening in regards to the rezoning. And again, like I've said before, the National Development Plan, and like you have also said, is a very comprehensive document that talks about more than just the zoning, but it is something that everyone should read. And I do remember, I know you said that the zoning maps are not online, but isn't the copy of the development, the development plan itself online that those persons can review?
If you do go to planning@gov.tc, I'll have to double check because I know there was a draft plan there that was available to view, but I think we had some technical issues where the link had expired. Okay. But we will definitely look to get that link back up there. So if you do visit planning@gov.tc, you can view the amended parcel list, and we'll try and have the plan back up there, or come into us and we'll give you a copy of the plan.
Okay, well, that's appreciated. Again, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. And definitely for the listening audience, I want to say to you that if you do have any additional questions, he has provided his contact details, and when the show is finished, I'll also type it within the comment section of the show so that you can refer back to it, where you can send questions directly to the Department of Planning, and they will be able to respond to you with any answers to those questions. And definitely, if you feel like you are being impacted or affected by these changes, please feel free to write in at this time while the consultation period is still going on until the next 2 weeks that it is. Great. Yes. So thank you once again for being a part of the show. Pleasure. And thank you, listening audience. And like I always say, until next time, stay safe and remain blessed. Have a really good evening. Expressed on this show belongs solely to Let's Talk TCI Real Estate and not that of Keller Williams TCI or any of its affiliates. Any action you take upon the information provided on this show is strictly at your own risk, and Let's Talk TCI Real Estate guest or host will not be liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of the material. I am not an investment advisor, broker, or dealer.